Well, it is a few minutes past the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started so that we have time to get through everything. So welcome everyone for joining our live and by recorded video to this month's Let's Talk Solutions, focusing on solving your most common Foundation Cloud questions. A couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording today's presentation, and you'll be able to find this and all the previous recordings in NPAC's knowledge base. Also, if you have questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A functionality at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Today, you'll be hearing from Numeria, our Senior Product Manager, and then Jeff from our Chief Innovation Officer. Let's take a quick look at the agenda. So today we're going to talk about troubleshooting web app data mapping. We're going to have a review of the fund statements and how the fund statement builder works. Jeff's going to cover those two topics. And then we're going to have an overview of the Candid Charity Check functionality. Let's make sure you all know how to use that, as well as some common questions and recap of the correspondence changes. Now, I know these are just a few of the topics that are of the most common questions that are asked for Foundation Cloud. So we will have some time at the end to do some Q&A with Jeff and Numeria. So please feel free to take notes. Go ahead and fill out your questions within the Q&A section, and we'll review those at the end. So with that, let me hand this over to Jeff to get started.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Greetings, folks. Good morning, good afternoon. I am hopefully sharing my screen. Can you all see Foundation Cloud?
No, not yet.
No. Give me just a second. Let me try one more. I may have shared the wrong screen. It says I'm now screen sharing. Can you guys see Foundation Cloud?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so I've pulled up Foundation Cloud here. We're going to start by talking a little bit about web application data mapping. There are two different types of mapping, and we'll go over both of them. One is pre-populating fields when an applicant starts an application. How do we pre-populate values for them? And then the other data mapping is once they submit an application, how do we map some of those values from the web app into fields in the proposal and scholarship application screens? So I'll start by jumping over to our portal. This is our Sandbox Community Foundation portal. I'll sign in as an applicant who's already got some applications. I'll give this a second to come in. I've got some notifications that have popped up here. I'll go ahead and close these. But when we look at the grant opportunities, there are several applications we've already got set up. If I pull one of these up, you'll notice that some of this data is pre-filled out. And that's because I've logged in as an individual who's associated with an organization. And the organization I'm applying on behalf of has this information in their constituent record in Foundation Cloud. And so the way we get all this data mapped here, some of you may already have that set up, but if you're curious as to how it works, we'll jump into Foundation Cloud and talk about how to set this up. So here in Foundation Cloud, we're going to go to Online Apps, to this main list of the applications that are online. The one we were just looking at was called the Bayou something or another, the Bayou City Foundation Common Grant application. I'll go ahead and open up this web app. And these are the pages that are on the application that are shown to the applicant. We've got a bunch of standard pages, and then we've got a reference page for this one as well. This first page was the one that had those predefined fields. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this little ellipsis menu. This is where we would set the HTML. This is where we would edit the layout of the form, what the user sees. We can manually add fields there. We can add some content, instructions, etc. But this is a list of all the fields that are on that application. And this is where we set up the mapping. You can really do it from both places. But for me, it's easier to go into the fields list. So these are on all the fields that are on that first page. I like going in and sorting this by the sort order. By default, it doesn't immediately sort yet. I think there's something in our backlog to address that, but I want to see them all in the order that they're going to appear on the screen, right? And if I slide all the way to the right, a couple of the last columns down here are the mapped field and the web mapped field. So these are the two fields we'll be talking about today. This application that I started in the portal had a few values pre-populated, and that is because they have fields defined here in the web mapped field. I'll hit this drop down and we can see what the options are. But the web user fields, these are all the constituent fields that are associated with the individual. And then the org they're applying on behalf of, these are all the fields that are relevant to the organization. And so this org, web user org full name was the name of the organization I was applying on behalf of, and that pre-populated into the first field. So this web mapped field column lets you set up what these predefined values are. And if we scroll down, we can see some advanced options here. These are custom mapped fields that I've set up, and I'll go in and show you how this is done in a few minutes. But this is where we map in values frequently from either from the current application or from previous applications. If I've applied before and I've put in my mission statement on my first application, if I'm applying for another grant, you may want to just read my mission statement for my first application and just map it right in for me. That would be nice. So we can set up these mapped fields. Again, I'll show you where that's done, but these can come from prior applications. They can also come from the current application. And one place that that's useful is if you have a supplemental page, maybe after you make an award, 6 or 12 months later, you want to come back in and ask the applicant, how did you spend your money? There may have been a question in the original application that asked something like, how many individuals do you expect to impact with this project? And maybe they said it was 50. On the supplemental page, you could ask them, hey, you said you hoped to impact 50 individuals. How many did you actually impact? So you could set up a read-only field and map it to a prior field in the same application so that they can see they said 50. How many did they actually impact, right? So that's a really powerful feature for mapping in values on web applications from either prior apps or from fields within the same application they've already filled out in a prior stage. So let's go see where those things are managed. I'm going to go back to this online apps screen. And without opening an application, the options are right up here at the top. I'm going to go to manage field mappings. And this is where I set up those fields that I want mapped in, the custom fields from prior applications. And so, for example, if I wanted to say this is I want to map in a value for from a previous web application, then which application was it? And maybe it was this Communities Thrive grant. And what field do I want to bring in from that application? And then I look for a mission statement. Well, that obviously wasn't a great example. Maybe I look for a capital expenditure budget question that I asked in a previous application. And if I want to map in a capital expenditure budget in a new application, I would just save this as a predefined mapped field so that whenever I went in to edit the fields on my new application, I could map in this value from a prior application. So managing these web application field mappings is something that you really ought to consider taking advantage of in your web applications. Let's go back to that Bayou application again and take a look at the fields on that page where we were before. I'm going to go to the pages, find this first page, go to its field list. And then I like to sort by sort order, just right out of the gate here. The other mapped field is related to when the applicant fills out fields in the application, where do we want these values to go in the proposal record that we create or in the scholarship application that we create? This is a competitive grant application, so it's going to become a proposal record whenever it gets processed. And so this drop-down list is going to include some proposal fields. So these predefined fields out of the box include the long description, the request amount, a short description, and a total project amount. So these are 4 fields on a proposal record that you can map in from application questions that you present to your applicants. So that way, whenever you get a new proposal record created, you process a web app to become a proposal. It can already have a short description and a request amount pre-filled out in that proposal record. The remaining fields here are going to be specific to every foundation. So within proposals, you can have project cost items and you can have organization financial details. And if you're asking these questions in your application, you can map these into your proposal records. So I'll show you a real quick example of a proposal. We'll pull up this proposal for Direwolf Sanctuary. And in this proposal, you can see that this is a $3.4 million project. They're getting a federal grant of 1.2 million, so they're not going to be asking for the full 3.4, right? And so they may have a list of funding sources that they've put in here. They may have itemized the cost of the project of this 3.4 million. We're going to do 1.8 million on salaries, right? almost $1 million on equipment and hardware, and then other is going to be like 50,000. And these are all things that you can define as an organization in the business rules. I'll show you that in just a second. And then we've got also items down here for the organization finances. This organization is asking for money. Tell me a little more about the org. We can track all that information here. What's their operating budget? What are their operating expenses? What are their total salaries, etc. And you can define all these items in the business rules screen. I'll jump over to settings, system, and I'll jump over to business rules and proposals. And on program expenses for a proposal, this is where we define these project cost items, and this is where we define these financial items that we can itemize in a proposal. And so if you've got some of these set up and you're going to be asking these sorts of questions in your proposal applications, your competitive grant applications, you can map them into the proposal records by going right back to where we were. One more time, I'll pull up this Bayou City application and show you one more time where to do that mapping. We'll go to this first page of fields. And when this comes up, we will jump over to this last section here. This is the mapped fields. So if we were asking for, what else are we asking them? I think of one of these that we could ask for an organization. Well, that's not a good example. There's probably some more relevant fields here on a different page of this web application. But if I wanted to map whatever they had entered into this field as a project, an organization financial detail on the project, then I could just say, this is where they entered their operating expenses. And this is the field that I want to populate on my proposal record for operating expenses. So two different types of mapping. It's a little bit confusing at first, but hopefully this demystifies it a bit. We've got the web mapped fields, which are used for pre-populating. And then we've got the mapped fields, which are used to take web application data and push it through to proposals and to scholarship applications. And just note that this list of fields is going to look different if you're pulling up a web app field list for a scholarship application. It'll have the amount needed and university they're attending and those sorts of questions that you can map in on a scholarship application. So that's web application data mapping. Amy, before I move on to the fun statement, have you seen any questions in the chat that we can address or in the Q&A section?
We do have one.
Okay, great.
One of the foundations maps in an address field so that it pre-populates. But
Okay.
if the address is incorrect, like that nonprofit moved, are they allowed to change it? Can they change it if it was pre-populated?
Yes, and so yes, in both cases, if you are pre-populating their address for their web application. When I started this application, it populated this. Depending on how you set this field up, the applicant can change this if they want to. But on the other side of it, as you are mapping in a field to, well, actually, we don't map in an address on proposal records. That's actually just a part of the constituent that was created. So I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but depending on how you set up this field, in this instance, you could certainly pre-populate it with a value that they could overwrite if you wanted to. You could also make this a read-only field in your web application where they couldn't overwrite it. But when it comes in, let's take a look at submitted proposal apps. If an applicant submits an application, we'll open this one up. And the applicant is, it looks like Fusion Labs is Fusion Admin. Fusion Labs is applying for this grant. This is their address. We can come in here, and if you know that this is not the right address, you could certainly change it here. Or you could go into your CRM system, Razor's Edge, and make the change there and sync it in if you like.
I think they were looking more for on that when a grantee logs in and pulls up an application and it pre-populates for them, can they change it?
Yes, so the applicant can change it here. The applicant can, if you make this an editable field and not a read-only field, they could change it here. And oftentimes they will be applying on behalf of an organization. It may make sense to direct them to the My Account page where they can say, yes, my organizations that I'm applying on behalf of include this one. I may want to edit this. Application list admins, hang on. Edit, here we are. So this is where I edit the individual details. I can't edit, I don't think I can edit the organization itself from here. I think these are all, essentially, these are all read-only. But if you're asking for those address fields in your web app, where we were, if we go back to the dashboard and open up a new application, if we pre-populate this and they change this, then on the screen where they submit, I was just showing you that a second ago, you can go in and make a change there if you need to. Because they will have submitted the address, and you can see that that address is different.
Perfect, thank you.
That makes sense? Uh-huh. Any other questions?
That's really the only other question right now.
Okay. Very good. Well, let's talk about fund statements and the fund statement builder. Fund statement builder is a really powerful tool in Foundation Cloud. And it's used not just for fund statements, but for fund summaries as well. So I'll start by pulling up a sample fund statement. This is a very simple fund statement. Many of you have comparable fund statements to this one. And then we've got some of you that have some really complicated fund statements as well. But generally speaking, a fund statement has activity lines. You know, you'll have a beginning balance, you'll have your revenue activity during this period, you'll have your expense activity during this period, and then you'll have the ending balance at the end of the period. And that's often followed by a breakdown of, you know, these $200 in contributions. These were the two gifts made by these donors on these dates. And then these grants paid, this $19,000 of grants paid. Here's a list of what those grants are. Sometimes this can include interfund transfers as well. So this is sort of the high-level overview of what a typical fund statement is. The fund statement builder in Foundation Cloud is really concerned with configuring these line items and what accounts they correspond to in your finance system. And so what I want to spend a little bit of time today is talking about this fund statement builder. So under the settings menu, it's under data tools. And then we'll go to the Fund Statement Builder tab. It's this last tab. And what you'll see here is 3 different sets of line items. And so by default, we're on the standard list. There's the Foundation Cloud Community Portal list and a Foundation Cloud Grants list. These are independent lists of each other. So the standard list is used for reports, for fund statement reports, whether that's SSRS or Power BI. The Foundation Cloud Community Portal set of line items is for the fund summary screen in the portal. When your fund holders log in and see a fund summary with the details of their fund activity in the portal. And then the Foundation Cloud Grants list is for your staff to log in and take a look at a fund records all-in-one fund screen. They can see a detailed list there as well. So for the most part, these 3 sets of line items are mostly similar, with a few differences typically within a given foundation, but they're all managed independently of each other. It's really worth noting that you could certainly, you know, the best way to go in and you know, make any changes here is to start here in the one that's called Foundation Cloud Grants, because this will only impact what you see internally. The community portal one will impact the fund summary in the portal that your fund holders see. And if you don't get it right, and if you mess it up, it'll be immediately apparent to your fund holders. And same with the standard, this will impact your report. So if you're going to make any changes, you definitely want to start here in this one, the Foundation Cloud Grants. Make your changes here. You can test them by looking at a fund record, and I'll show you that in just a minute. And then any changes that you know, once you finalize it and get it exactly right, then you can go in and make those changes to these other 2 lists of line items. It's worth noting, if some of you guys have been customers if you've been around for more than 4 or 5 years, it's entirely possible that you have lists of line items in your database that are not going to be supported by this screen. These standard line items are for fund statement reports. And some of you have line items defined for 4 or 5 different types of fund statements, and you may not see anything at all when you select standard. And if that's the case, I certainly wouldn't add anything to it. You'd probably want to contact support and see what you need to do there. Again, it's safest to start here in Foundation Cloud Grants, because this is what your staff will see and it will not be public. And this is the best place to start. So, you know, as we were looking at this sample fund statement, the beginning balance was on line 1. We had a few revenue lines followed by a few expense lines, and then our ending balance was the last item. And so these line items that we've got defined here, the order is very important. You want your beginning balance as number 1. You want your ending balance as, let's see, and FCG. This one doesn't have an ending balance, but you'll want your ending balance to be at the very end. And then all the activity lines in between. Typically, we see revenues first and then expenses afterward. It's really up to you how you want to present it, but it's pretty typical that we see balance, beginning balances followed by revenues, followed by expenses, and then an ending balance. You can set up multiple rows here in this table with the same sort order and the same line description. And essentially what that means is everything that you define here will be combined under that one line. So in this example, contributions are tracked in the Financial Edge database, general ledger accounts 4,200 through 4,299, right? This is an account range. And then we've also got some contributions that are stored in the 4,700s. And so they start at 4,700 and end at 4,799. So essentially what these tell us is any transactions, contributions are probably going to be credits in this account. Any transactions in this range of accounts or in this range of accounts are going to be considered revenue transactions and should be all summed up together in one line item. These last two segments here for segment position and segment value have to do with Financial Edge's multi-segment account number concept. Those of you who are using Sage, you just have an account number. It's going to be 4,200 or whatever. In Financial Edge, the dimensions are done with segments of the account. And so maybe you only want to track the contributions that are made where your third segment is a 0-1 or something like that, right? In that scenario, you would set your segment position to 3, and you would set the segment value to 0-1 so that we only included transactions that were in this 4,200 range where the third segment was an 0-1. That's essentially what these filters mean. So I'll go ahead and pull one of these up and we can take a look at all the fields that are available here. We've got a description, we've got a line number. We categorize each one of these line items as revenues, expenses, or balances. That's really relevant for fund statement reports. It's not too terribly relevant for the Foundation Cloud grants and the Foundation Cloud community portal sets. But it's a good idea to go ahead and categorize them properly. What balance type is the line item? Generally speaking, the first and last items are going to be balance. They're going to be beginning balances and ending balances, respectively. But all the other ones are going to be activity balances, and so we classify those as none. So anything in the middle is going to be an activity line item, and it's going to be a balance type of none, which basically means it's an activity balance during the period between the start and the end date. And then this is where we configure the details of what to look for in the Financial Edge transactions. This is the account code range, and then this is any filtering on additional segments that we set up. A drill down is a flag that says whether or not, whenever you look at a number that says there were $10,000 of contributions, can I click on that and see a list of the transactions that made up that total? You probably want to leave that drill down turned on in Foundation Cloud. In the report, it really doesn't matter, but in the portal, it does matter. You're probably going to want tight control over what you allow your fund holders to drill into and see. We have some foundations who say, go ahead and give them a list of other contributions. That's fine, but we don't want to give them the details of their fees. Just tell them that their total fee during the period was, $600 or whatever. And so on a line-by-line basis, you can control whether you want to allow folks to drill down into those lines. And then the last field here is a credit or debit indicator. It's basically a multiplier. If you set it all up and you're getting values that are positive that should be negative or vice versa, you can essentially say, no, we need to multiply whatever we calculated by -1 instead of multiplying it by 1. And that will basically just flip the sign of what we see. So let's take a look at an example of what these look like. I'm going to go to a fund record. And for the Kier Family Fund here, we've got this all-in-one fund button. If you don't have the all-in-one functionality, it's really powerful. And it lets you see sort of fund data from your Foundation Cloud system, from your CRM system, from your finance system, transactions from your finance system, which is what we were just talking about. It lets you see gifts that we've synced in from your CRM system, grants that we've made here. If you don't have access to this, go ahead and open a support ticket, and it's just a matter of us changing your license key and turning it on. We'll be happy to do that for you. There's no cost. You've got this as part of your license. So if you don't have that, open up a support ticket. You can get access to it. But here we can see these line items that we configured. We've got a beginning balance. We've got the contributions, returns, other income items here. We've got some expense items here. This is typically not a spendable balance. This is typically going to be an ending balance. Essentially, I can tell we've got one thing that's wrong here. We shouldn't allow drill through on a balance because it's going to pull back every single transaction. It's not going to be relevant. It's going to take a long time. So we'd recommend not making these drill through, but the other ones you can certainly make drill through. So if I want to see for this year, what was this $100,000 in contributions? Looks like there was just one contribution that came into this account on this date. If there had been a reference in Financial Edge, that would have pulled up here as well. But you may see pages and pages of data here, depending on how much data you've got collected. Here's our grant breakdown. There was a $12,000 grant that was paid out, and it looks like we may have had a $1,000 refund that was applied as well. But this is essentially how the line items are set up and configured. One more thing to note on this fund statement builder, most of what I just described around the account numbers and the segments and the filtering, this is all relevant to Financial Edge NXT. For those of our newer customers using the Sage integration, you won't be using this information at all. Essentially, instead of configuring your account information, it's a lot easier. You just go in and set an account group in Sage. Just set the name of the account group that we've set up in Sage for you. And that account group in Sage is where you define what's the account range, what are any dimension filters we need to apply there, etc. And this is all typically done for you during implementation by our Foundation Cloud implementation staff. Yeah, these aren't relevant for Sage customers. It'll just be the account group that you set here. So a lot of power here. I want to reiterate one more time. If you need to come in and make changes, always start with Foundation Cloud grants. Because if you do something and mess it up on these two, it'll be public and you'll be calling support with an emergency. So start here. If you can't get it right, support team will be more than happy to help you with it. And then once you do get it right, you can go in and make changes to the other ones. If you don't have any line items in your Foundation Cloud grants, but you want to start, if you've got line items in either of your other two, it's a really cool feature here that you can just make a copy. This is what I've got in standard for my report. And let's just copy them all into Foundation Cloud grants so I don't have to start from scratch. And if I say okay, it'll wipe out what I've got in Foundation Cloud grants and start all over with a fresh set of line items copied from this standard set. So really powerful tool there as well. Got a lot of power there, so you got to be careful with it. And Amy, I think that's about it for what I was going to cover on the fund statement builder. Did any questions pop up?
Great. I have just one.
Okay.
They said, we have been wondering where the current net assets on the fund summary screen comes from.
Oh, great question. So is this from follow-up question? Is this a Razor's Edge? Sorry, a Financial Edge customer or a Sage customer?
Yes. Financial Edge.
Financial Edge. When we pull up a fund record, we were just looking at the Kier Family Fund. The fund assets, we also call it the net assets, and then the cash available to grant, cash balance, different labels for different organizations. These don't come from line items in the fund statement builder. We have stored procedures in the database which calculate these values nightly. So for Financial Edge customers, we sync over transactions every night. That transaction sync is one of the first steps, maybe the third step in the nightly sync. After those are all synced in, and we've synced in new funds as well, we then go in and do a full balance refresh, and we call our stored procedures for net assets and for cash available for every fund and update their balances as of the night before. And so every foundation has these set up a little bit differently. These stored procedures are very often customized. And if you are noticing that your cash balances are not correct, then we may need to tweak your procedures. So go ahead and open up a support case for that.
Great. Let's see. Can you create a calculated row in the fund statement?
Great question. We don't have calculation functions like we do for, for example, in a web application field, I could have a total budget field that's like, all of my salaries plus all my expenses equals my total budget or whatever. On fund statement builders, we really can't do calculated fields, but what you can do is you'll notice the contributions are two separate line items. You could do one range of the balance in one range of accounts, and then also the balance in another range of accounts. These two contribution items come up as the same contributions line here, this $200. These transactions could have been in two separate sets of accounts. So it's possible that that first gift was in one of these and that second gift was in one of these. So you can do multiple lines and have them roll up together. But you really can't do any sort of calculations on these line items.
Okay, thank you.
But
One more. Is there a way to exclude non-cash assets from the calculations?
great question. Would there be non-cash assets and cash assets in the same GL account? Because if we are, whoever asked that question, feel free to unmute if that's possible. I don't know if that's possible in this webinar, Amy, but if you've got a way of identifying them either by their account segment or by an account number, then you can set up your line items to exclude those particular values. But if it's non-cash transactions and contributions,
Non-cash assets from the calculation.
oh, perhaps from the balance calculations or from line items. Because
I'm
if
not
it's
sure.
for the beginning balance,
Oh,
sorry, if it's for the
current net assets.
yeah, net assets and cash available. I'm going to go back to the funds record again. We were looking at this assets. So it's possible that this 1.17 million includes cash and non-cash assets. Short answer is if there's a way to distinguish the cash and the non-cash assets in the chart of accounts, right? Or some transactions are in some accounts and some are in other accounts. We can code for that in your stored procedure. It'll have to be a customization we do in your asset procedure. But if you have all non-cash assets in a 1199 account that's all non-cash, and all the rest of your 1000 accounts are cash assets, we can code your fund asset calculation to exclude account number 1199, for example.
The example is like insurance policies.
And
she said,
what I've
thank
typically
you.
seen, what I've typically seen is that insurance policies are typically in separate accounts. And so we can exclude those accounts whenever doing the net asset calculation, and only include certain assets and certain liability accounts, rather than just saying all the 1000s minus all the 2000s. We can customize that and remove, say, don't look at this insurance account, assuming that's a separate GL account in your 1000 range. Another option, just in finance, a lot of times in Financial Edge, they will set up the 3000 accounts as balance accounts. And they'll have transactions in your asset and liability accounts roll into those, so that you've got additional transactions in your 3000 accounts where you can just look at your 3000 and it's your balance. And then maybe in that scenario, you don't roll up your insurance balances into your 3000 accounts. If that's the case, we might be able to get more accurate asset balances by looking at the 3000s instead of looking at the ones and twos. So we do have ways of doing this. I'd recommend opening up a support case or getting a hold of Amy to see if we can take a look at how your stored procedure is currently calculating assets, and possibly make a change to that.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Great
That's
questions.
it. No more questions right now.
All right. Well, next up on the agenda, Numeria is going to share her screen. And Numeria, I apologize. I took up more than half the hour. I didn't leave you a whole lot of time, but hopefully you can get through your portion in time.
No worries. Alrighty. There we go. So I'm going to talk about Candid Charity Check today and its integration. The first step to understand where you can set up all the constituent codes that you would want in the foundation, and to see if you want Candid Charity Check to show up on any of your constituents. The first step is to go under System Settings. We go in Business Rules. In Constituents, we'll get to see this page. It includes everything that you need to know. There is a research link that you can click on the constituent side to read about Charity Check. You can disable or enable this at any point. So if you do not want Candid Charity Check to show up on all of your constituents, you just simply disable it here, and we will not show it on your screen. Right now, by default, we have both Charity Evaluator, which is a tool that we used to use before Candid Charity Check, It appears on the constituent record as well as the new candid charity check. So if you would like to disable any one of them, this is the place to do it from. The second thing that I want to talk about on the screen are the constituent codes that you can have, and the validations that you can set to true or false to make sure that all of your constituents follow and have consist of the same constituent codes. Number one is Candid Pub 78 verification status. We can set this to true or false. And whenever we run charity check, we will keep this validation in mind. The other one is the BMF status. Right now, they're both set to true, but you can set either of them to false and figure out how you want to move forward from that point. Another thing that we do for every foundation is have all of their constituent codes in here. You can click on this plus button. It will open up a modal that would allow you to add your specific constituent codes. If you would like to remove any of the constituent codes that already exist, for example, if you do not want to see anybody with the status of suspense, you can just click over here, delete the status, and that will be taken out of your charity check report. If you want to add it again, you can always click on this add button and it'll show you a modal from which you can add it back. If you guys have any questions regarding this, let me know and I can show you in the product how to set it up. Moving on, this is how the screen looks. Overall, the constituent screen on your constituent, right at the bottom, we would see both of the evaluator, the candid charity check and the charity evaluator. We can see that it's going to show you that as this is showing you the verified status, this over here can also show you the status when it's validated. You can rerun your charity check and it will generate a file over here, right under date, user and status that you can click on and see your candid charity check report. I'll show you shortly how that looks like, but this is how these tables look. And if organization is approved, the same verified status would show up over here in this side. In case of ineligibility, this is the sign that you're going to see. We'll also show you the result, what was missing, what was happening, and you can always click over here and view details and view the details that led to that failure in more detail. You can also manually approve something just like you could in the previous charity check, but it's going to show you a manually approved things, and we won't have details to share with you, but it's very doable. It's just a one-click solution that you can click on and figure out if it's still valid for you. This is how the reports looks like. It has everything that you need: the organization name, EIN code, location, deductibility status description, most recent Pub 78, IRS Pub 78, verify with most recent Internal Revenue Bulletin. So you have all of those details here. If you would like to print it and save it, you can do that. But if you don't print it and save it in your own computer and you just have the report right here, you can click on it anytime to view it. So it's not going anywhere. It's right there whenever you click on it. So you don't have to worry about the report. That's all about about Candid Charity Check. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do have one. Can you confirm that the charity evaluator draws from Navigator and Candid pulls from GuideStar?
Charity evaluator draw from Navigator and Candid. Yeah, that's right. So the charity evaluator, I'm not sure if it pulls from Navigator, but we used to validate it from the IRS database to see if it's a 501c3, if it's verified or not. And the Candid Charity Check is drawn from GuideStar. That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. So moving on, we will be talking about correspondence. We have an article over here that I would like to share. And if anybody else have any questions in the system, I can also give you a demo of that. The correspondence that we have right now, there is a KBA article to show you all how it works, what can be done. I wanted to go through this document with everybody to see if there is anything they still have a question about, and then we can go in the product and see it for ourselves. So overview of new correspondence functionality. The first thing is that we have designed it so that it looks simpler. The email communications are more easier for you to do. And the template and its formatting is, again, something that you can quickly change. Some of the key things that we have included in this change is that there is a template editor. You can change a document. You can have a document and also change it to HTML if you want to send out an email. There are merge fields that we're allowing now. We can also change the DOTX format to DOCX format in this correspondence enhancement. And the template management is now easier than before. You can upload, create new templates from scratch, or paste the content from other templates onto the Word documents, or Word documents onto the template. It is designed to improve efficiency, organization, and productivity for your company, and it's going to make the previous issues with correspondence a lot more easier. You can also bulk download if you would want to download any of your correspondence. It's just one click away. The way that the new template looks like is something like that. In correspondence, we ask you if you would like to create a document or if you would like to create a Word. This is right here. Sorry. If you are doing an email, oh my God. If you're doing an email, we recommend you click on email, and then it would automatically check HTML for you. All of your templates that are already there will show up over here in this drop down. If you want a document, you can create a document, and Word doc would automatically be selected for you. All the templates in Word would appear right here for you to generate. You can also convert the Word documents that you have into HTML. It's not perfect, but it gives you a starting point from which you can just take it on further and edit your HTML files. You can simply go into the document and file settings to upload anything that you would want. You can save changes within the editor, and it will allow you to save all the merge fields, validate the document for you, or create a new one if you would like to. How to convert existing DOTX templates. You simply have to click the ellipsis of the template that you want to edit. We click on edit and we open that file. And as soon as you click on save file, the template is going to change its format from DOCX to DOTX. Excuse me. This is how the upload version, in case you click on upload a template, looks like. You can just simply click on it, save it, or also create an HTML version while you're uploading it. It's just a checkbox away. And here are some tips and tricks and best practices that you can use to make sure that everything is easier for you. Moving forward, it is best practice to use a single document, Word doc, for a single correspondence type, email or letter. We cannot support real-time changes between the Word and HTML editors on the same template. So you make sure that you work on one thing at one time. We should avoid complex merge fields like address blocks because they may not display correctly. And ensure that the appropriate template file type is selected to avoid errors. We also have some common questions over here that people usually ask. Will we still have HTML templates working? Yes, we will. Can we change the DOTX from GE Classic? Yes, you can, and make them a Word file. It does allow merge fields overlapping to fully load before switching tabs, and merge fields disappearing can be avoided by not using fields like address blocks and so on. Do we have any questions for correspondence so far?
No, not yet.
Alrighty. In the system, just so we can see, you go over here in correspondence, and these are all the templates that you might have. You can simply click edit and right there. This allows you to open this email. If you want the same thing on HTML, it can allow you to create that. Save this. Open again. It would just take the document and format it into an HTML and show you all the fields again. You just need to make sure that you save your document after making the changes, and then when you go back to HTML, you import from the document again. So that's all that we have. Let me know if you have any other questions, and I will let Amy take us forward from here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I know that was a lot of information, everyone, but we do have this recorded. We will send that out when it is ready to everyone. And remember, you can find this on our knowledge base. So our next Let's Talk Solutions will be on Wednesday, November 20th. Here, I can go back to sharing here. There we go. November 20th. If you have any ideas, as always, please reach out. If you have other topics you'd like us to consider, even in the new year. We will be skipping December, just in honor of all of your busy seasons. So please mark your calendar for November 20th. I think that is about it. I want to thank everyone for coming. And have a great day, and reach out if you have questions. I've listed both mine and Jeff's email here. So thanks everyone for joining today.